Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Door-to-Door Podcast. This is Hunter, and today we're doing something special. We just hit 1 million downloads and dropped episode 500, and honestly, that's pretty wild. So we thought, why not celebrate by putting together a compilation of some great moments from our most listened to episodes and top guests. This episode is packed with real actionable tips from mindset shifts to sales psychology to closing techniques that have helped reps level up big time. So whether you're new to the game or already a top dog, you'll walk away with value you can apply today. Let's get into it. Let's kick it off with Chay Wisdom breaking down how to be a top performer in less than 9 months.
I had booked a couple weddings, few weddings here and there, but it just wasn't enough. And I'd really lost a lot of passion for the wedding industry anyway. It wasn't fulfilling me in any way at all anymore. And so she orders me like an iPad and some polos, and she sends me the pitch and she's like, learn this by Monday. I'm like, okay, sounds good. So on Monday, we hit the doors and I was like, this is what you're doing? This is nuts. Tuesday, we had a meeting. It was a really inspiring meeting. I met my regional managers for the first time, my teammates, and I trained for 4 days. I never pitched in front of my friend who was training me ever. And I remember she looks at me and she goes, okay, so next week. And I go, no, I got this. I'll figure it out. I got it. So on Monday.
Bored at that point, you're like, do I still have to keep watching you? Can I get overtrained? Like, I'm ready to roll, girl. Let's go.
I got it. I'll figure it out. Even if I fall on my face, I'll learn a lesson, right? So the first week of June, I go out there by myself. I remember I closed my eyes and took a deep breath and just like knocked on the door really fast. I was so nervous. And I just biffed it all day. People were telling me, I think I cried. I was like, oh my God, what have I done? And then I got my first deal and it was like a 90 RMR. They got a bunch of cameras. I sell alarms, by the way. And I was so excited. And that just gave me this rush. It gave me energy and just that rush. And I was like, all right, let's go. And then I just started, I was consuming podcasts, mentorship, books, everything I could do to get better. I did it all. I didn't see my friends for a while. I would say my pitch before I went to sleep, in the shower, brushing my teeth, like walking to my car. It was constantly in my head.
Can I pause you right there? Mm-hmm. What you just said is what I try to preach to I've interviewed a lot of top performers, and I swear the common theme is I became obsessed with consuming content and just memorizing and consuming so that it becomes obsessive of like, why would I go watch, a Joe Rogan podcast when I could like study the university and read the manuals and watch the pit and memorize? Like, it's like focusing so hard on like, I got to be the best at this. And this is a common trend. So if you're listening to this and you're a rookie and you don't think it's important to watch the videos, like, Skyline has our platform. I'm sure you watch some of my dumb videos, but hopefully my voice did not get too annoying. But you know what I'm saying? Like, for me, it's guys, point proven. Okay, keep going. I don't mean to cut you off.
No, you're totally fine. And that's the thing is, I just dove head first and I didn't look back. And they say about like burning the ships. I had nothing to go back to. Yeah. And I looked at, the money, the growth, the opportunity, the connections, the networking. And I was like, why would I waste this opportunity? It's like being lazy, you're wasting your opportunity. Working 2 or 3 days for a couple hours a week, you're wasting the opportunity. So I was like, I want to make the most out of this opportunity. So I just became obsessed with it, and 5 weeks in, I broke a regional record. Our highest RMR at the time was 817. And I had been selling alarms for 5 weeks and I hit an RMR of 1,030.
Wow. In a week.
Yeah. I like crushed it. Yeah. It was awesome.
Wow.
It was awesome.
That's like some serious props, girl.
Yeah. Yeah. And I it was never like, okay, I worked 4 hours today, time to go home. Or okay, the sun went down, time to get home. Like I was the first one on the doors, the last one on the doors, always. Like you just have to put in the hours and be consistent. And from that point forward, I was like, okay, I can roll with the big guys in my region. Like I don't have to be like that, new girl anymore. Like I can do this. And so I like remained at the top of my region for the remainder of the summer. And yeah, it was, oh man, it was so fun, but I never stopped. Even now, I just broke a record back in February. I sold 35 alarms in a week, and I actually broke my regional record. My regional manager, it was his record, and I broke it.
Next up, a clip from our episode with Kenny Brooks, the funniest sales rep.
Like when I was knocking doors, we never had like nothing like this where you could just keep everybody fired up, keep them motivated, keep the industry growing, let them know that, this is the best thing since a slice of bread. Because at the end of the day, like people, they look at door to door as like the underdogs. They underestimate us, you know what I mean? And that people don't understand that like door to door changed my life actually, all the way from like 12 years old. And I'm going straight into it. Like as I started door to door as just like a paper route. It was like a newspaper job. And how I got into it is simply fact. Like my mother, she raised 6 kids by herself, single mom. And I remember like growing like 4 or 5 inches, like 12 years old. So I got into basketball, and my mom couldn't afford like basketball shoes. So I went to school, did tryouts, and I was humiliated because like the basketball team was just roasting me. I was sliding across the gym. I forgot what shoes. I had like some XJ 900s or some Pro Wings. It was like some shoes that like you didn't want to have at that age. So I was getting roasted, and
I was pumps. Yeah, remember those pumps? Yeah, the pumps. Or the Allen Iversons. Those were like the shit back then.
We was allergic to those.
Okay. Detroit over here.
You got a pair of those, you would grow a bump on your face. So like I didn't get those. We couldn't afford those. So anyway, I was like playing basketball, and I slid damn near out the gym like to the lunchroom. Like that's how much grip it ain't have on the shoes. So on the way home from school, I'm humiliated. I'm crying like because I'm like I can't believe I just got embarrassed. So I seen like they had like these telephone poles where they staple like jobs on a pole. So I called the number, and shout out to Robert Dyson. That was my first manager like in a door to door. So at first I was gonna be like a paper boy, you know what I'm saying? Like when you throw the paper to the addresses. And one day this guy came out, he started snapping on me, like he was snapping on me and my coworker, like, like, why you throwing this paper in my yard? I've been canceled this subscription a long time ago. Now, like at 12 years old, like I was already like listening to see like what, like a lot of people, they thought like when they saw my video, they like this dude is a rapper or something. Cause like how I like put words together and I mix comedy with, like with the sales, like. But I just listened to a lot of hip hop. Like my favorite rapper growing up was like Jay-Z, Eminem, Lil Wayne, so, and I like how they like use metaphors, you know what I'm saying? So that's what I did. So at the time, I'm 12 years old, and I was like, can I say one thing? So I was like, you got kids? He was like, yeah. I was like, if 2 of your kids was playing and one broke the glass, you want to spank both of them, right? He was like, no. I was like, well, you shouldn't spank us for the bad performance. Let me just call my supervisor. And when I said supervisor, you start laughing. So we end up upgrading him like Beyonce. So he ended up getting like another year subscription. So I went from like a paper route boy to like a salesman. So like I became like a salesman on an accident. So after that, I started making, because like in sales, I realized at 12 years old, you can go from welfare to Rockefeller. You know what I'm saying? It ain't no ceiling over your income. I went from like making like $50 a week delivering paper till making like $200 to $300, sometimes $500 a week. It just depends on your performance. You know what I mean? So at that 12 years old, I realized that you just had to be yourself. Because when I was like 12 years old, they gave us like a script to me, read. Like you had to read the script. Like I'm working towards a college education. And I'm looking like, I didn't even believe the script because I'm like, I'm 12 years old. I'm not working towards a college education. I'm working to give me some shoes. Like I just want these basketball shoes so I can go and stunt on them so they won't talk about my shoes no more. Give me some shoes. So my short-term girl was like, I'm just going to work, make this $50, and then I'm going to go buy me some shoes for $50. I know I can get some basketball shoes. You know what I mean? I'm like 12 years old. I'm still like in like junior high, you know what I mean? Like middle school. So it wasn't that expensive at the time. So when I started making all of that money, I was making like my mother, at first she didn't want me to do it. She's like, you ain't about to go out and just knock on strangers' doors. Then when I came in with that first paycheck, she's like, oh, yeah, keep doing it. You know, it was like one of those, like, because I started making good money, you know.
Same thing happened to me.
Yeah, so that's when, you know, so I did that from like 12 to 14. Like my short-term goal became like, I had a dream then. Like I was like Martin Luther King. I was like, oh, I want to be successful. Now I forgot about even playing basketball. Because it was like, I just fell in love with what I was doing. You know what I mean? And that's what a lot of people don't realize. Like when they first get into sales, they don't really believe, you know what I mean? They like, once you get your best, like, and my favorite quote is, there was this quote, like, one of my mentors told me, they said, if you give your all, that's all you might need. You know what I mean? And that's all I did. Like when I was out there, I'm like, I'm just gonna give my best. I'm gonna give my best, because I realized sales was a mystery. So I just started having fun. I did it for like 12 to 14. And then like when I turned 15, I got like taller. I got like 6 feet. So then I took basketball serious. So I started playing basketball. So I got out of sales. And then when my grandmother passed away, she was like a big influence to my life. And like when she passed away, that's when like I dropped out of school my senior year. I didn't even finish my senior year. And then I was like depressed, you know, I was like homeless, living house to house, staying with my mom, staying with my uncle, staying with my aunties. And then my brother, he was like, man, remember how you was making all that money when you was like 14 years old? He was like, it's this traveling job. My friend worked there right now. He said some guys out there making like $2,000 to $3,000 a week. Here it is, we like homeless, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, what? So I was like, oh, let's do it. I seen opportunity, because he was like, bro, if he making this, your personality way further than this, you'll go out there and kill him, you know what I'm saying? So we went, and that was like around like 2004. That's when I got into the industry where the video happened, you know what I'm saying? I started in like 2004. So I was like the top sales. When I first started, like, I remember my first check, I made like $600 or $700, and I didn't even work a full week, but half of my check, I invested in myself. You know what I mean? I went straight to Barnes and Nobles, and I like bought a lot of books. Like my first book was like Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. So I just started buying books. You know what I'm saying? They said you want to have something from a dummy, put it in a book. So the more I started buying books and started reading and educating myself on the art of selling, like I was reading Zig Ziglar, Closing of a Sale, you know what I'm saying? See You at the Top. That's when I started elevating my thinking. So
Now, let's hear from Jeremy Miner as he dives into problem finding and problem solving in sales.
What I mean by unsellable generation is this, okay? And it's, you know, let me say that with a grain of salt. Do I mean that people are not sellable? No. Do I mean that people's buying behaviors have changed drastically in the last several years? Yes, okay? And what I mean by that is a lot of people believe that if they have a great product, if they have a great service, that they can just go out and tell people they've got the best this and best that, and just people are going to line up and want to buy it. And I call that product pushing. Okay. Mm-hmm. One thing we have to understand, and this is probably the case even in door to door, but especially like if you're selling to CEOs or corporations or companies, or even, you know, you're selling life insurance policy, it doesn't really matter, even cars. Okay. Your prospects are more cautious and skeptical about making the wrong buying decisions than they have ever been before. And why is that? You know, one of our clients that we do all the training for his company, his name's Brandon Kane. He's the author of a book called Hook Point, How to Stand Out in a 3-Second World. Big national bestseller. Look back at it. It's a great book. He does all the social media for like MTV, Taylor Swift, Rihanna, big social media guy in Hollywood. He says in his book that there are over 3 billion. So there are over 3 billion content creators every day that are trying to take away your prospect's attention from what you were trying to do. You are even competing with 13-year-old junior high girls on TikTok now. You are literally competing with TikTok people and videos, okay? Guess how many content creators there were 20 years ago? Just take a wild guess.
Maybe 30?
More than that, there was about 1 million. There's over 3 billion content creators now. 20 years ago.
I'm thinking like motion picture and stuff. You're like, more than 30, dude.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I'm just saying like content creators that are pulling your prospects' attention spans away from you, right? Like he talks about, we live in a 3-second world. How do you stand out? Okay. Because of the information age we live in today with the power of the internet and especially social media, we have to understand that your prospects are being sold to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, month after month, year after year. Now, when I go to events and say that, people are like, that's not true, Jeremy. I don't have salespeople coming by or calling me or coming to my door 24 hours a day. What are you talking about? I'm like, well, I want you to really think about it. When you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing you do? You grab your phone, you get on your Facebook or your IG, and you see what? Ads trying to what? Sell you something. You walk into your kitchen, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. Like, you know, if you drink coffee, you get your coffee or your inner drink or whatever you drink, you turn on the TV to see some, you know, some news, and you see what? Commercials trying to sell you something, right? You get into your car, you're driving to the office. In your case, you know, with the guys you train, they're driving to the, you know, the doors, the neighborhood, and they turn on the radio, and what do they hear? Ads trying to sell you something, right? You get on your lunch break, you get back on your phone, you look on your social media, you see your aunt trying to pitch her latest, greatest MLM she's trying to recruit you in. You are constantly being sold to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And because of that, human beings have built walls of resistance that any time they feel that someone is trying to sell them, they immediately go into fight or flight mode and try to get rid of you, especially on the doors. As you know, there's a lot going through their brain when you knock on somebody's door and they don't know who you are, or even like a cold call. All right. So we have to become what I call problem finders and problem solvers, not product pushers. Okay. Now, what do I mean by problem finding? Like any book back here, like any of these books back here on sales or whatever, they're all going to say, you have to be a problem solver. I don't think I've ever read a sales book that did not say, I have to be a problem solver. Okay, I get that. But here's your problem. If your prospects don't buy from you, you can't really solve their problems. Okay. Yes. You have to be much better in our day and age at problem finding. And what does that mean? That means helping your prospect find problems in their mind that before you knocked on the door, before you called them, before you were in a meeting with them, they didn't actually realize they had. One thing we all have to know, your average prospect does not even know they have a problem when you first start talking to them, especially if you're cold calling them on the door. It's not like they're sitting around like, oh, I've got these bad problems. Oh, a door-to-door salesperson. I'm so glad they stopped by. They're not thinking that. You're like catching them completely off guard, just like if you're calling somebody on the phone as a cold call. Most people, even if they book on your calendar, if you're selling solar maybe, and you're doing lead generation, they're booking on your calendar, or you're doing outbound leads. Most people do not realize they have a problem, or maybe they realize they have a problem, but they don't realize how bad that problem really is, or maybe what the consequences are if they don't do anything about solving that problem. Now, once you learn, like you talk about, you know, I've read your book. Actually, I read your book here the last couple of weeks when I saw I was going to be in your podcast. Once you learn advanced questioning skills, it allows the prospect to not only see that they have one problem, but maybe they have 2, 3, or 4 other problems that they didn't realize they had. That's your sales ability that allows them to see that. You can't tell them that because that's going to go in one ear out the other. You're biased. You're the salesperson. Yeah. Your questions allow them to tell themselves that, and they start to view you as like the expert, the trusted authority that's going to get them the results they want. So in our day and age, you have to be really good at problem finding, problem solving. You cannot be a product pusher unless you want to be an average salesperson. Now, what do most salespeople do? Okay, in any industry, like when we go in to do audits, like Google AdWords is one of our clients. We train 4 of their larger divisions. We went and did an audit with them, and they're already doing pretty well financially. Okay, but when we heard their salespeople were like, oh my God, like it was horrible. Okay. If anybody, well, nobody in your podcast maybe is working from Google. So I'm just going to say here. So don't spread this around. All right.
No, you can send it.
But it was bad. They were just product pushing. They're like, oh, hi, you know, I'm from Google AdWords, and I want to talk to you today about our cloud services and blah, blah, and just start talking about the cloud services. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like you guys are losing so many sales. So what do most salespeople do? They're taught how to ask a few consultative questions. What's your biggest problem? What solution are you looking for? What's your budget? And then they start talking about the features and benefits and how they have the best this and the best that, which, by the way, doesn't every salesperson say they have the best product? Exactly. Like how many salespeople do you know? Like, yeah, John, you know, our product's 5th best in the market. Nobody does. Right. So when we say things like that subconsciously, it actually triggers your prospect to trust you less because they're used to every salesperson and company saying the exact thing, right? So it's like taking a bucket of mud and like throwing it up against the wall and like hoping and praying that something you're going to say is going to magically trigger the prospect to want to buy from you. And I call that hopium. It's a drug that so many salespeople are on and entrepreneurs where they just hope and pray that something they're going to say is going to cause that person to want to buy. And it's such a hard and unpredictable way to make a living. So you want to be problem finding, problem solving, not product pushing.
All right, here's a fire clip from Parker Langeveld on mastering the fundamentals of sales to boost your close rate.
What sales technique do you felt like maybe was a differentiator? What did you do different to get you to average 20 in a day? Like that, okay. You had to have made some differences.
Yeah. So I think the first thing, I'll give 5 little pro tips, but I think the first thing that's really big is understanding the difference between a close and a sale. I don't think we understand that a lot. We think, oh, a sale's a deal. No, a close is a deal, right? And, I'm good friends with O'Donnell through the expert circle, and we've talked a lot with him. And he's a biggie on that, where he's like, you gotta learn how to close, not just sell. Grant Cardone, all these guys, they talk about it. So what does that mean? Well, I don't believe that I sold more people in a day than other reps out there that are doing 4 or 5 did. Okay, I think we sold the same amount. The difference is I closed to I sold. And so aspect number 1 is you need to realize when someone's sold, when are they sold? As soon as they ask you any form of a question, they're sold. Okay, if they don't ask you a question, even someone like me, I'm not going to waste my time on them. I think that's what the pros start to learn is it's like, hey, that person's not qualified next door. You can't sell someone that doesn't ask you a question. It's impossible. They have to have some level of interest in one way or another. Okay. Or you can sell someone else just back out. Doesn't matter. They got to just express something back to you. So that's number 1 is I qualified very quickly. Okay. Once you transition into a close, okay, you think about all these top closers, a close is a conversation. It's no longer a presentation. To sell somebody, my presentation has to be flawless. And I have to think about, that's another thing that I'll say is when you think about a presentation, it isn't just building value. We hear a lot of times, I tell my guys in training that value is benefits minus cost. Okay. So we think, what are the benefits? Oh, I'm doing the yard and I'm doing this and I'm doing these things. Okay. Yes, throwing in free things or getting more is a benefit. But a lot of times people don't sign up because they don't trust the back end of it. Okay. I had a funny conversation, and this is a side tangent to that, but I think it's applicable here. Is somebody asked me the question, hey, if Grant Cardone got on the doors and Will Ferrell got on the doors, who would sell better? And I think Will Ferrell would sell better. You know why? Is because everyone knows Will Ferrell. So if Will Ferrell was representing a product just because of who he is, they're going to sign up. Does it mean Will Ferrell is giving anything more than anyone else? No, but if Will Ferrell is, he's the face of that, then the back end has to be fine. There's not scheduling issues. It's not a shady company. What I'd say is going to actually be delivered on. And so a lot of times, we think, oh, I just haven't said enough. The person doesn't see the value, and that's wrong. The question that needs to be asked is, okay, how much of what I said do you actually believe? And I'll use that all the time on the doors. They look at me and they're like, no. And I'm like, let me ask you this. Do you see value in what I'm doing? Yeah. Well, let me ask you, do you actually believe what I'm saying to you? No, I don't believe this. Great. And let's work through that. So I think you have to, when you're going through your selling portion, understand, I got to address the reliability and consistency aspect, not just the value aspect of this. Once you get a good presentation, and that's short in pest control, that probably is 2 minutes max. Yeah. Okay. Now I've targeted that down. Either that person is going to ask me a question or give me an objection, or they're not. They're going to express no interest. If there's no interest, I'm done. I'm gone. If they ask me a question or give me an objection, now I transition into the close. What's the close? It's conversation. Okay. I got to get them to verbalize things, and we're just talking back and forth at this point. I'm not giving them a scripted response. I'm not blowing into the contract. I'm not trying to force them in anything. I want them to do it on their own. And I'll say things like this, Sam, to people on doors. I'm like, hey, to be honest with you, if you don't want to do it, don't sign up. I don't care, right? I don't know enough of your neighbors are probably going to sign up anyway. Here's the deal. If you feel uncomfortable anyway, let's just not do the deal. Maybe you shouldn't do it. And when I say it like that, all of a sudden people are like, you know what? Let's go ahead and sign up. And so I've figured out that people only say yes when they feel like they can say no. And as soon as I make it feel like, hey, you can say no, I don't care. Done. You're opening up to the yes, and you're opening up into the conversation or the close portion of that. So as we talk about the close, and I give tips on that, I think one tip that I've learned, and this is something I picked up from Cardone, is always do your deal sitting down. And I'll do it all the time on the doors. I'll just talk to him, and all of a sudden I'm like, hey, it's hot. You care if I sit on your step? No. Well, as soon as I sit on my step, now I'm planted there. I'm not moving. So the person's like, well, I can't kick this guy off. So I sit every deal. Okay. Next thing that I do is I think it's extremely important to not give somebody a reason to say yes. And D2D Con, I was there. Ed Milet, one of the biggest things that he said that stuck with me that I've repeated probably 1,000 times since D2D Con is this. Sales isn't that I have to get that person to believe. I have to get them to believe that I believe, and then transfer belief occurs. So what does that mean? All the time we think we have to give them a reason to say yes. Hey, I got to be more valuable in this way. I got to be more valuable in this way. The reality of it is people like change all the time. They don't care.
Yeah.
So all I got to do is take away all the reasons to say no. And it's as simple as this. Somebody says, I got to talk to my wife. Okay. So when they say I got to talk to my wife, what does that mean? Well, there's 3 things they can say no to: my price, my product, or me. If it's my wife objection, they can't say no to me. Why? Because the wife never met me yet. It's either my price or my product. So I say, sure, you know what? I agree. I think you should talk to your wife. And a lot of times I think we invalidate that. As soon as I invalidate, their wall goes up. Sales has 2 aspects of it. Number 1, I got to get them to want to buy. Number 2, I got to get them to keep their walls down. So sure, I agree. Talk to your wife. Totally. Let me ask you this. What would she say no to? Okay. There it is. It's as simple as that. What would you say no to? They say it. They verbalize it. Well, probably this, or I don't really know. Or they may even say, well, she wouldn't say no. Perfect. Let's go ahead and move forward. Okay. So that was a huge thing for me out there, was the aspect of taking away all the reasons to say no. So they themselves are like, well, there's no reason not to do this. I guess let's go ahead and pull the trigger, instead of, yeah, but,
So they're kind of pigeonholed.
Yep. 100%. That's what I call it, is pigeonholing them. They pigeonhole themselves, where it's like, you told me what you wouldn't say no to. Let's just solve that and move forward. We're cool.
Love that.
And I don't have to throw free things out like that. Right. I think reps and pest control think, there's an objection. What do I have to do? Throw something for free, price drop them. I don't. What would you say no to? Well, to be honest with you, I don't like the scheduling aspect. Cool. I always call 72 hours before. We text an email. Does that work for you? Yeah, I like that. Cool. Move forward. You're done. I didn't throw anything free there. We just move forward. They just had to feel heard.
I call it the inception shovel. And I teach this technique, and it's different but similar, because I love it. When they say, for example, I want to research it, I'm going to say, perfect. So what if you were to go research right now, what would you be researching? Okay. And if you found the information to be relevant and accurate, what you researched, would you then make a decision? Well, of course. Okay. So let's research that and find the accurate, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so they're you know what I mean? I need to talk to my wife. If it's the same kind of concept of like helping the customer buy and helping them like, hey, I want to shop around. I better get a couple other quotes before I buy whatever. It's like, okay, so what would you be looking for in the other quotes?
Let's roll a clip from Jill Sinclair's episode talking about building a winner's mindset in sales.
If you only had 100 doors, what would be the intensity of your follow-up? Instead of you having thousands of doors, you're like off to the next. And if you could bring those 2 worlds together of saying, I'm so persistent in my follow-up and I'm so intense with my first impression, imagine what these guys would do.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I just got truth bumps. Truth bumps everywhere. I love it.
Truth bumps, everyone. And so, okay, so you're in sales. You get your face kicked in a few times. People are like slow to respond, reject you. A lot of people say females tend to be more sensitive to the rejection. What are your 2 cents on that?
No, it is very personal. I find it's actually, I believe men are more emotional than women are,
I agree. No, this is what's funny is they get
their ego in the way. They get all this shit. Listen to this. So I was doing some training with a large real estate brokerage. And so I go in there for the day and I pop them all up and we got this and said, okay, so I'm going to go door knocking with you today. And people just froze because I think, the whole concept is whoever the coach was before, they'd say, okay, go door knocking, but they wouldn't go with them. Right. And this guy comes up to me, Jill, can I have a sidebar? And I said, yeah, what's up? He says, well, you're too intimidating. I just don't want to do this. I said, are you kidding me? I said, first of all, you're saying it like it's my fault that you're intimidated. I'm not intimidating. You are choosing to be intimidated. And if you're not going to take advantage of the opportunity of me, a door knocking, queen, like, how are you going to get ahead in life? Right. So it was like the guy that came up and said this. Right. So for me, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is just showing that I don't think it's a rejection of me, Sam. If someone doesn't want it, it's just not their time. It's no to me means not yet. It truly does. It means not yet. Have I actually provided enough value in my conversation to understand what their true problem or perceived problem is? Because it's about them. It's not about me. Because it's all about how do I frame that conversation so the person feels listened to and they feel valued and they know that I'm here to literally solve their problem. Yeah. Now, I teach the principles of influence. And the first principle of influence is to be curious. How do I know how to help someone if I don't know what they need? period. Right.
Love that. So let's say, so you coach a lot of salespeople, sales companies, you speak on it. I'm brand new, or even thinking about getting into sales, and I'm just intimidated by this commission only. I don't know if I have that tenacity of, eating what I kill. I'm used to the 9 to 5 W2, and it's just a new world for me. And how do you kind of switch your mindset from a normal, comfortable paycheck, and how do you coach people through? Because I'm noticing this a lot with clients. This is why I'm bringing it up. They're struggling, like converting. It's almost like missionary work. It's like, please, commissions are a good thing, not scary thing. How do you convert people and coach them through that transition?
Well, it's truly finding out, and I have one-on-ones with people that are coming new into the industry for sales, because I really want to find out what is their motivation, and understanding what personality styles they have. And some people, you can have whatever personality style it is and be successful, but studies show that people that have the promoter controller personality styles do better in the sales role. But my thing is, okay, so why do you want to be in sales? And literally uncover that, unpack that. And if someone says, well, I want uncapped sales, I'll say, okay, so what are you willing to exchange for that? So your time in, what are you willing to, because that's what you're exchanging for dollars. Are you willing to really learn how to be curious? Are you willing to learn the 7 principles of influence? Are you willing to learn these things, humble enough down that you are going to be, a child of education in that sense of the street smarts? Because I don't care if you've got, the degrees. I've had university students come to me and say, Jill, I've learned more from you in 1 hour than I have in 4 years of sales and marketing at university. So that tells me, that system's broken. But back to the new salesperson, is like, why are they in this? And if they can't answer me right away, if I can't drill down and they're not, I just thought I'd give this a try. Well, you're likely going to fail. If you don't have a big enough why. You know what, Jill, I want to afford to buy a Ferrari by the time I'm 25. Awesome. Okay. So have you envisioned that? Have you gone to see it? Have you looked at the payments? Like what, are you truly wanting this? Because that's awesome if you do. Or do you want to leave a legacy? Like what do you want? And then tie that to the results. And I know right away if someone's going to be successful, because I'm very highly accountable in my coaching. So whether I'm coaching a large corporation or, individuals, I have what we call the accountability conversation. And it's all about, okay, so 2 strikes, not 3 strikes, 2 strikes, you're out. So if you are not being accountable with what you promise yourself you're going to be accountable for in our conversations, then I will fire you from my life, because I don't have time for that. And I don't want someone to say, oh, Jill's my coach, and I'm not getting results, right? So I've had to fire a few clients in my life, and that's fine. I move on, but I get results, Sam. And the whole thing is, it's all about that burning desire. And that's greater than just the sales and the high of the sales, understanding what do you truly want?
I love that.
And to close it out, here's a powerful clip from Sam Taggart himself, sharing some insights on the principle of don't quit.
The first principle of knock, or this element of not quitting, comes from non-negotiables. And Ed Milet said, most salespeople focus on the price they're paying. That's low-level stuff. Forget about the price and what's it worth. And this element of like pain and suffering and going through some hardships has been a really hot topic for me lately. And, one of the things that's helped me is when you're in a good state, like let's say I'm feeling good today, there's not like craziness that's happening, is when you pre-negotiate what your end result's going to be. And so if we pre-negotiate and then we don't allow renegotiation during the thick of it, that's going to help us achieve a lot more. And so I remember when I was training for my first marathon, I'd never run 10 miles. And I remember the first time I was like, I'm going to run 10 miles. And I was like 5 miles in and I went all downhill. And then the other 5 miles was running back uphill. And I was like, wow, stupid. And I'm like dying. So what I ended up doing was just saying, I'm going to make it to that sign without stopping. And so I'd run and then I'd stop and walk at the sign. And then I'd be like, all right, I'm going to make it to that plant. And without stopping. And I vividly remember this element of like, I I'm going to get to this point. So I'm going to kind of draw this. So I was like, look, here's my sign, or here's my trail. I'm going to make it to this, and then I'm going to run again. I'm going to make it to this, and I'm going to walk. And then, and it's just like life's paths are all about not when I'm in this running and it's painful right here, in my head, emotionally, I want to renegotiate. And if I allow myself to renegotiate during these times of like hardship, those are the biggest limiting elements in life. And so, finish what you started. So like I've been on this physical, and I've done the same thing spiritually. I've done the same thing mentally. I've done the same thing with writing. I'm writing a really challenging book right now, and I'm pushing myself. And the only way to grow is to push beyond those limits, which then is going to cause this emotional discomfort. And you think of like Jesus Christ, when he was on the cross, Satan was like, hey, I'm going to tempt him with his own power. He's like, hey, if you're God, like, couldn't you just come off the cross and like end all this? And Christ, knowingly that he had to like stop his superpowers, didn't renegotiate in the pain of being crucified, said, hey, I'm going to keep going through with this. And that's the element of not renegotiating what was already pre-negotiated. And another way to say that comes from this book, or the podcast that I did with Tim Story, where he says, don't fold while you're unfolding. And basically it's the whole element of like a hurricane. So you think of like palm trees. I'm not the best artist, but I'll give it a shot. So you've got these palm trees, right? And if you think of a palm tree and the elasticity of its trunk, when a hurricane hits, these things are going to bend almost like completely like this. So if you look and watch videos of hurricanes, they literally hit the ground almost, and then when the hurricane's done, they pop right back up to, their normal tree, right? And so you ask yourself, like, the strength and elasticity of ourselves when there's hurricanes coming at us is going to be a huge factor in our ability to kind of hit the ground and then pop right back up and come back for more. And you think of like its environment. So you've got this pine tree. So, or you take like any other kind of tree, and they're not used to hurricanes. They didn't grow up in the coastal region. And a pine tree is going to just, if a hurricane wind type happened, that thing would snap right in half, and it would crumble. And so you have to think like, what's the elasticity and what's my flexibility in these hardships, so I don't crack right here, and I can still withstand the hurricane, and I can come back for more. And so that's kind of an interesting example of that. And one of my biggest regrets sometimes is when you cut out short or when you break too early. And there was a summer, and this is for everybody that's selling door-to-door in the summer right now, is I did 1 year 298 accounts. And I remember, it's like we finished the cup, we won the tournaments, it was about a week early than the summer was going to finish. I still had like plenty of time on the clock, but I had emotionally drained myself as if I couldn't knock another door. And I remember calling my regional, and I was like, look, I'm on my way home. We won the tournament. He's like, you're at 298 accounts. Why wouldn't you just put 2 more accounts in? And I said, well, I'll do that when I get home. And he's like, oh, you will? You'll do it in Utah instead of Texas? And I was like, yeah, I could find 2 accounts. Never found those 2 accounts. Why? Because I had kind of mentally shut this chapter and mentally moved on to a new chapter. And oftentimes we have life regrets like that, where it's like, I can never say I did 300 that year. I'd gone on to do more accounts years, to come. But like, what's interesting is I always regret not just staying and sticking it out, because I had a goal to do 300 and I limited myself. And then I always was like, yeah, I'm a 300 account rep that year. And I was like, no, I did 298. And so oftentimes we get all the way to the finish line. It's so interesting watching the Olympics. So you have a lot of these qualifying rounds where these sprinters would go all the way and then they just kind of coast through the finish line. But then when they are actually in the thick of it, in the game, in like the real sprints, is they're running all the way through the finish line and not stopping early, not quitting, not renegotiating what you said. Okay, that is the finish line. I sprint all the way through the finish line is a huge piece of like this emotional resilience.
All right, that's a wrap. If those got you curious, go hit the show notes where we linked every full episode from this compilation for you to binge listen. Thanks for hanging with us, and a big shout out to all of you who helped us reach 1 million downloads and 500 episodes. We couldn't have done it without you. And if you liked this style of episode, DM us, tag us, or drop a comment on Instagram at D2D Experts. Let us know if you want more compilations like this. We are always down to give you more of what works. And hey, if you got value today, do us a favor and leave a review on Apple or Spotify. That helps us keep growing and bringing in the best guests. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.